All right, so after we talked about the general adaptation syndrome, what happens if we are, exposed to stress for too long? Okay, the GAS, the gas, works well for single exposures to stress. And, traditionally in our society, we had short-term stressors, or in our evolution, short-term stressors that we were able to cope with, and then we were able to wrap up, and then we moved on. Well, in our society today, we have a lot more stressors, and our stress, levels tend to be elevated for prolonged periods of time. So repeated and prolonged stress with too much phase 3 time leads to various signs of physical deterioration and premature aging. Okay, so some of the things that we've found is that the production of new neurons declines. Okay, neural circuits in the brain break down. And the DNA telomeres, which are the chromosome tips, the things at the very end of your DNA, shorten. Okay, the cells lose their ability to divide, the cells die, the tissue stops regenerating, and we get early aging and death. So stress actually changes our DNA. And so it's actually a really scary thing because our society is becoming more and more stressed out at a younger and younger age. A lot of the studies that we've done on stress are on middle-aged, older people. And we know that this happens to them. Well, when we're seeing similar signs of stress in adolescents, your age, can you imagine what's going to happen? What could happen long-term with your generation? And that's why, there's a huge focus on adolescent stress reduction. And one of the reasons why, we're going to be doing laugh yoga and stuff in classes so that we can talk about some of the self-management tips of stress. Now, what are the health consequences of chronic stress? So it's not just a mental thing, it's also a physical thing. So the stress hormone cortisol helps our bodies respond to brief stress, but chronically high cortisol levels damage the body. Okay, so persistent stressors and negative emotions can lead to unhealthy behaviors such as smoking, drinking, or poor nutrition and sleep. Now, and the increased release of the stress hormone causes autonomic nervous system effects such as increased headaches, high blood pressure, inflammation of the body. Especially one of the things we've identified is the stress tummy, where you actually get a buildup of deep belly fat, which causes that an increased stomach size and stomach fat, which we know is a very dangerous type of fat to have. Okay, immune suppression, which means that people are sick all the time, and being sick all the time can also lead into you're coming down with worse and worse diseases. Okay, and then also heart disease. Okay, it hurts your heart. Okay, so again, cortisol is the stress hormone. It's a really important one to remember, is make sure you understand that cortisol and stress are related. Now, male and female stress responses are a little bit different, okay? In response to stressors such as the death of a loved one, females tend to tend and befriend. They nurture themselves with others, and they bond together, okay? Tend and befriend is an important phrase to remember. This likes to show up these days on the AP test. So when you're talking about tend and befriend, it's basically women nurture themselves. They take care of themselves, they take care of others, and they bond together. They come together and they try to, respond to a stressor like that. Okay, this bonding sends out a hormone called oxytocin, which plays a role in bonding. Okay, and women show behavioral and neurological signs of becoming more empathetic under stress. So when women are stressed out, we actually become more empathetic. We care more about others. We take others more into consideration as a part of just kind of our natural stress response. Now, men under stress are more likely to withdraw socially and numb themselves with alcohol. Okay, men are also more likely to become aggressive under stress. And in either case, men's behavior and brains show less empathy and less tuning into others under stress. So, it's interesting to see how men and women in general respond to stress differently. Now again, guys, remember, this is all speaking in generals. Okay, this is not, all men and all women. Okay, there's obviously exceptions to both sides of these. Now, what about, heart disease? Well, we talk about two different types of personalities, type A personalities and type B personalities. And a type A personality, and personality traits that go along with each of these, we've seen some correlation with certain types of stress-related responses. Okay, so people with a type A personality are impatient, verbally aggressive, and are always pushing themselves and others to achieve. They're almost like the high-strung person. Everything they have to do it their way. They have to do it themselves because no one else can do it right. They're very organized. They're very neat. They have strong goals. So it's not bad to be a type A, But what we do know is there are some traits that go along with being a type A person that can contribute to increased stressors and stress reactions. Now, a type B person is usually a little bit more relaxed and they're more go with the flow. They're kind of like, okay, I'll do it because it's there, no big deal. And they respond to stressors in a little bit of a less intense way. Now, interesting, in one study, this is one study, heart attacks only struck people with type A traits. So we do know that people with type A personalities are more susceptible to heart disease and things like that. Now, what's important to kind of remember is that accomplishing goals is healthy, but a compulsion to always be working with little time spent smelling the flowers is not. And this is kind of where the big factor is that people with type A tend to be go, 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 and they take very little downtime and very little time for themselves, and that's when we start to see some of the detrimental effects of that personality type. Now, pessimism also plays a role. It can be helpful to realistically anticipate negative events that may happen and to plan on how to prevent or cope with them. So pessimism, though, refers to the assumption that negative outcomes will happen and often facing them by complaining and or giving up. So again, if we look at this chart, you can see the percentage of developing coronary heart disease. People who are pessimists do tend to have a higher likelihood, not huge, okay, but a higher likelihood of developing coronary heart disease. So again, it goes back to your attitude and you looking at life. Does your attitude contribute to your likelihood of reacting negatively to stressors and having those increased stress responses? And the answer is there's evidence that says yes. Now, men who are generally pessimistic are more likely to develop heart disease within 10 years than optimists. So we'll talk a lot about pessimism and optimism when we talk about personality so that you guys can understand that a little bit better. But just in general, it is better to have a positive outlook on life. Now, another important stress factor is the perceived level of control. And this is really one of the deciding factors on how, to manage stress and how is stress going to affect you is the amount of control you have over that stress. So they did an experiment and then the left and the middle rats below received shocks. Okay, the rat on the left was able to turn off the shocks for both rats. So which rat do you think had the worst stress and health problems? Well, only the middle subordinate rat had increased ulcers. Okay, it's not the level of shock, but the level of control over the shock, which created this, the stress. Okay. So again, this poor little rat had no control over when he was going to get shocked. Okay, the one on the one on the left was able to turn on and off the shocks. So he did have a level of control over, whether or not they were both going to get shocked. This one, though, didn't. He didn't know when it was coming. He had no control over what was going on. So he had more ulcers because he just felt completely out of control. And we've seen that in humans. When you feel out of control in your environment, when you feel out of control with whatever it is stressing you out, okay, that's when we do see an increase in stress responses. Now, how do you promote health? Okay, social support is huge. Having close relationships is associated with improving health, immune functioning, and longevity. Social support, including from pets, provides a calming effect that reduces blood pressure and stress hormones. Confiding in others helps manage painful feelings. So we know this, we saw this with Maslow. We saw that this need to belong, okay? We know that the need to belong is a highly, highly important part of managing our whole well-being, physical and mental. Laughter helps too. Now, aerobic exercise and health. Okay, aerobic exercise refers to the sustained activity that raises heart rate and oxygen consumption. Okay, we know that aerobic exercise reduces depression, okay, and anxiety, and improves stress management, and is correlated with high confidence, vitality, energy, and good mood. Okay, and so actually what we've seen is that the exercise group, okay, has the biggest increase in depression treatment than the no treatment group or just the relaxation treatment group, okay? So we do know that exercise absolutely helps with depression among other kind of mental health issues. Because what it does is it produces certain genes. It triggers certain genes to produce more proteins which guard against more than 20 different chronic diseases and conditions. Okay, and it reduces the risk of heart disease, cognitive decline, and dementia, and an early death. So aerobic exercise and health is vital to kind of our mental and physical health. And we're going to talk more about this when we talk about mental health as well. When we talk about things like depression and anxiety and other kind of mental illnesses, because more and more we're understanding that aerobic exercise is almost better in some cases than biopharmaceutical stuff like pills. All right, so laugh yoga, get ready.